this TikTok video result in an academic paper? Maybe. About a month ago, I replied to the etymology nerd. He said,
and yet, students on Rate My Professor are way more likely to call their male professors by their last name than their female professors.
I pointed out this was misleading because while the paper did find that students were more likely to refer to male professors by last name alone, like calling your male professor Smith, students were also less likely to refer to female professors by first name alone. Students were more likely to refer to female professors by professor last name, like Professor Smith, or doctor last name, Dr. Smith, or Mrs. Smith. I also said, I do want to put an asterisk here. I've gathered orders of magnitude more data than the original study was using, and I think my additional data calls their results into question. The original data set had about 4,000 reviews. It was based on a few different departments in 14 different universities. I wrote a web scraper to download all of the reviews on ratemyprofessor.com, collecting over 20 million reviews, so I've got a bigger data set to work with. I emailed the author of the original paper and shared the full data set with her. She's done a more complete, a more rigorous or sophisticated statistical analysis than what I'm about to show, but I think, based on my understanding of her results, I think her results basically line up with what I'm about to say. In the full data set, students are much less likely to refer to female professors, in red, by last name alone. That's the same as the original study found. In the full data set, students are more likely to refer to female professors by first name, or professor last name, or doctor last name, or a common title like Miss or Mrs. last name. Focusing on references by first name alone and breaking out the reviews by the year in which they were written, we can see that the percentage of reviews that refer to a professor by first name alone have been converging over time. That is, in the early 2000s, students were much more likely to refer to female professors by first name alone. But in more recent years, the difference is very slight. And this is probably moderated by things like the professor's age. Students might be more likely to refer to a young professor by first name alone, and young professors might be more likely to be female than old professors. So, is this TikTok going to lead to an academic paper? Well, maybe. The original author has exchanged several emails with me over the course of a month. She's done more sophisticated statistical analysis. She seems to be working on the problem, and she's published a similar paper based on a smaller data set in the past. So I think it's possible she'll try to publish something with this data in the future. But I don't know yet if she will attempt to publish something or if whatever she attempts to publish will be published. So maybe. Finally, this whole thing reminds me of a passage in the novel Cryptonomicon. I don't have the novel in front of me, so I'm just going to reference the passage by memory rather than exactly quote it. But in my memory, the main character is taking a standardized test. And the test asks a question about a boat in a river where the current in the river is X miles an hour. And the main character starts to fixate on what it means for the current in the river to be X miles per hour. The main character is confused because the speed of the current might be different at different depths of the river. The surface moves at a different speed than the middle or than the bottom, and the edges of the river move at a different speed than the center, and the speed of the current depends on the time of day and the temperature and whether the river is curving or straight and so on. And there's just an endless amount of variables and complexity that go into the speed of the current in a river. And I've always thought of this passage as representing how stuff that we think of as a single, simple number might actually be a complicated matrix of many numbers. And I think this whole rate my professor thing is like that. It sounds like an easy question. Are students more likely to refer to female professors by their first name? But when you start to look at the data, you notice how that single, simple question that you think might be answerable with a single number starts to decompose into a complicated matrix. Well, it depends what universities you're looking at and what geographic region those universities are in and what's the professor's age and what department is the professor in. And what's the student's age? What's the student's gender? What's the gender ratio of professors in the specific department at the university? What year is it? And so on. There are all these different complexities that get hidden when you just think about the question as a single, simple number. And questions that seem like they could be answered with a single number can wind up taking whole multi-dimensional matrices of numbers to come up with an answer. Thanks for your time.